Mr. William, Mr. William, please!" The words shattered the quiet hum of Murray Industries' lobby like a stone through glass. 8-year-old Emily Murray came running, no, sprinting, through the revolving doors, and everyone who saw her knew immediately that something was terribly, terribly wrong. Her white dress was torn, her hands were covered in blood, and she was crying in that gut-wrenching way that children cry when they've seen something no child should ever see. She ran straight past the security guard, straight past the executives, straight to the janitor with the mop. His name was William Wells, and he had a secret. If you're ready to hear the whole story, click subscribe and let me know in the comments where you're watching from. Because tomorrow, I will be giving you another story just as crazy as this one. And you don't want to miss it. Now, let's get into it. Nobody knew except Emily Murray. The 8-year-old had discovered him 6 months ago during one of her after-school explorations through her father's building. It was a Tuesday afternoon in late March, the kind of day where spring sunlight streamed through the tower's floor-to-ceiling windows, but couldn't quite chase away the chill. Emily's nanny, Mrs. Chen, had deposited her in her father's 20th floor office with instructions to do your homework and don't wander, then disappeared to run errands. Emily lasted exactly 12 minutes before boredom won. She'd explored the executive floors dozens of times, all sleek glass and expensive art, and people in suits who smiled too wide when they saw her, their eyes calculating how much favor they could earn with the boss's daughter. So she headed down past the corporate levels, past the cafeteria and conference rooms, down to the basement maintenance corridors where the real building lived. That's where she found him. The fluorescent lights buzzed overhead, casting harsh shadows in the concrete hallway. The air smelled like industrial cleaner and old pipes. Emily had just rounded a corner when she nearly collided with a man pushing a yellow cleaning cart, mop and bucket rattling softly. He looked up. She froze. "You lost?" His voice was quiet, rougher than she expected. "No," Emily said, lifting her chin. "Just exploring." "Fair enough." He gestured with the mop handle. "Watch your step. Floor's wet." That was it. No lecture about where she should or shouldn't be. No fake smile and, "Let me escort you back to your father, Miss Murray." Just a simple warning, and then he went back to mopping, as if 8-year-old girls wandered the basement levels every day. Emily liked him immediately. She didn't know then that this was the beginning of something that would save her sister's life. She only knew that for the first time in months, an adult had treated her like a person instead of a prize to be displayed. "What's your name?" she asked. "William." He didn't look up from his work. "You?" "Emily Murray." "Figured." A hint of a smile. "Better head back before someone misses you, Emily Murray." But she kept coming back. At first, it was pure loneliness that drove her to those basement corridors, being the daughter of Carl Murray, self-made billionaire, tech visionary, the man who'd built Murray Industries from a garage startup into an empire worth $3 billion, meant that everyone wanted something from her. Teachers wanted recommendations. Parents at school wanted playdates that were really networking opportunities. Even family friends treated her like a miniature version of her father, someone to impress and curry favor with. Emily's mother had understood. Sarah Murray had shielded her daughters from the worst of it, had created a warm home inside the cold glass mansion, had made sure Emily and Pamela knew they were loved for who they were, not what their last name could provide. Then, 3 years ago, cancer had taken Sarah in 6 brutal months, and everything changed. Carl threw himself into work with the ferocity of a drowning man clinging to driftwood. He traveled constantly: Singapore, London, Tokyo, San Francisco. When he was home, he was locked in meetings or on conference calls, building his empire higher and higher, as if altitude could somehow outrun grief. Emily knew he loved her. She knew he was trying his best. But his best meant she saw him maybe an hour a day, usually while he was distracted by his phone or exhausted from 18-hour workdays. Her sister Pamela, 17 and brilliant, had escaped into academics. She was taking college courses while finishing high school, drowning herself in quantum physics and computer science, already being recruited by MIT and Stanford. Pamela loved Emily fiercely, but she was rarely home either. So Emily wandered, and she found William. Their friendship grew in the quiet spaces of the building. She'd finish school at 3, Mrs. Chen would bring her to the tower, and while she waited for her father or sister to be available, Emily would slip away. She always found William eventually, in the maintenance rooms, on the loading docks during his breaks, once on the rooftop access stairs where he was replacing a light fixture. William never asked for anything, never told anyone about their meetings, never treated her differently because her father's name was on the building. Instead, he taught her things, practical things: how to tie a proper bowline knot, the kind sailors used; how to identify constellations through the building's windows, Orion's Belt, the Big Dipper, Cassiopeia; how to whistle through her fingers loud enough to stop traffic. Small skills that had nothing to do with quarterly earnings or market share, and everything to do with being human in the world. Sometimes she'd sit on his overturned bucket while he worked, her legs swinging, and just talk. She told him about missing her mom, how sometimes she'd forget for hours and then remember all at once, and it felt like drowning. How she felt invisible despite being the billionaire's daughter, like everyone saw the name, but no one saw her. How the big house felt empty even when people were in it. William listened, really listened. He never interrupted with platitudes or tried to fix her sadness. Never gave advice unless she asked for it directly. Never made her feel like her feelings were too big or too small or too much. He just let her be Emily. Not Emily Murray, billionaire's daughter. Just Emily, 8 years old, still figuring out how to exist in a world without her mother. Then, 2 months ago, something happened that Emily would remember forever. She'd been waiting by the parking garage elevator when she heard the shout. A construction worker, the building was adding a new wing, had collapsed near a concrete pillar. His co-workers stood around him, panicking, shouting for someone to call 911. Emily watched William drop his cleaning supplies and run. What happened next was like watching a different person emerge from William's quiet exterior. He dropped to his knees beside the unconscious man, fingers pressing against his neck, checking his airway. His hands moved with absolute certainty, no hesitation, positioning the man's head, starting chest compressions with a rhythm that seemed almost mechanical in its precision. "You call 911. Tell them we have a male, approximately 50, unresponsive." "No pulse," William barked at one of the frozen co-workers. His voice had transformed, sharp, commanding, nothing like his usual quiet mumble. "You, find an AED. There's one on every floor. Move!" They moved. Emily watched from 15 feet away, transfixed. William performed CPR with textbook precision, counting compressions under his breath, giving rescue breaths, checking for response. When the co-worker returned with the AED, William applied the pads and delivered the shock like he'd done it 1,000 times before. The man gasped, coughed, his eyes fluttering open. By the time the paramedics arrived 4 minutes later, the construction worker was conscious, breathing, stable. The lead paramedic examined him and looked at William with professional respect. "Who did the initial response?" "I did," William said quietly. His hands were shaking now, Emily noticed, though they'd been rock-steady during the crisis. "You have medical training?" "Some, a long time ago." After the ambulance left, Emily found William in the stairwell, sitting on the bottom step with his head in his hands. She sat beside him silently. Finally, he looked at her. "Don't tell anyone," he said, "about what you saw. It was nothing." "It wasn't nothing," Emily said. "You saved his life. Emily, please." There was something in his voice, something broken and desperate, that made her nod. "Okay, I promise." But she didn't forget. She tucked that knowledge away, deep in her heart. William Wells could save anyone. She just didn't know why he was trying so hard to hide it. Later that afternoon, Emily found her father between meetings. Carl Murray stood in his glass-walled office overlooking the city, phone pressed to his ear, his free hand rubbing his temples. He was 43, but the gray at his temples made him look older. His charcoal suit was perfectly tailored, but his tie was loosened, and his eyes held the exhausted look of someone running on 4 hours of sleep. He saw Emily and his face softened. He held up one finger, 1 minute, and concluded his call. "Hey, sweetheart." He pulled her into a hug that smelled like coffee and expensive cologne. "How was school?" "Fine. We learned about fractions." "Fractions, huh? Those'll be important when you're running this place someday." He smiled, but it didn't quite reach his eyes. He checked his watch. "Listen, I've got another meeting in 5 minutes, but Pamela should be done with her study group soon. She'll drive you home, okay?" "Okay, Dad." "Be good for Mrs. Chen." He kissed the top of her head. "Love you, Em." "Love you too." She watched him disappear into a conference room full of executives in expensive suits. His phone already back at his ear. Her father. The billionaire. The man who built an empire, but couldn't seem to build enough time to just sit with her. Emily wandered back toward the elevators, past assistants and managers and people who smiled too wide when they saw her. She thought about William in the basement, asking for nothing, expecting nothing, just being present. She didn't know why he had those life-saving skills. She didn't know what had driven him to hide in basement corridors, mopping floors when his hands could do so much more. But somewhere deep in her 8-year-old heart, in that place where intuition lives before logic learns to question it, Emily knew one absolute truth. If she ever needed help, real help, the kind that meant life or death, William Wells was the one person who could truly save someone. She just prayed she'd never have to find out if she was right. Thursday evening arrived like any other, which was precisely what made it so dangerous. Carl Murray was halfway around the world in Singapore, closing a merger deal worth $200 million. The house staff had the night off. Carl had given them a long weekend as thanks for covering extra hours during his travels. That left just Pamela and Emily alone in the sprawling Murray estate, perched on the city's edge, all floor-to-ceiling windows and architectural angles, surrounded by manicured lawns and a security system that cost more than most people's houses. A security system that, unknown to the sisters, had already been compromised. Emily had noticed something was wrong with Pamela all week. Her 17-year-old sister had always been the steady one, the brilliant one who devoured quantum physics textbooks and debated philosophy with college professors twice her age. But for the past 5 days, Pamela had been jumpy. She'd spin around when doors opened. She'd check her phone obsessively, her face tight with worry. She kept the curtains closed, even during the day. "Are you okay?" Emily had asked her Tuesday afternoon. "Fine, Em. Just stressed about midterms." But Pamela had already aced her midterms. Emily knew because she'd seen the test papers on the kitchen counter, all marked with bright red A's and teacher comments like, "exceptional work," and "beyond college level." Something else was wrong. Emily just didn't know what. She didn't know about the discovery Pamela had made 3 days earlier. It had started innocently enough. Pamela needed tax documents for her college financial aid applications. MIT and Stanford both wanted detailed financial disclosures. She'd gone into her father's home office, booted up his computer using the family password, Carl Sarah M. Pam 2020, the year they'd all been together before cancer took their mother, and started searching through financial folders. That's when she saw it. A folder buried 3 levels deep in the directory structure, hidden among legitimate business files. V. Cross Transactions. Victor Cross, her father's business partner, the COO of Murray Industries. The man who'd been Carl's right hand for a decade, who came to family dinners, who'd delivered her mother's eulogy with tears streaming down his face. Pamela almost didn't open it. Should have just found the tax documents and logged off. But something about a hidden folder with Victor's name made her curious. Victor was family. There couldn't be anything wrong with taking a quick look. She clicked. What she found made her blood run cold. Encrypted files, transaction records, shell companies with names like Cascade Tech Solutions and Pacific Rim Innovations, companies that didn't show up in any public business registry. Millions of dollars flowing out of Murray Industries into offshore accounts. And the payload being purchased, source code, proprietary algorithms, breakthrough AI technology that Murray Industries had spent 5 years and $50 million developing. Murray's revolutionary AI was being sold to foreign competitors before it even hit the market. Every transaction bore Victor Cross's digital signature. Authorization codes only the COO could access. Timestamps going back 2 full years. Victor Cross, the man her father trusted like a brother, had been systematically stealing the company's crown jewels and selling them to the highest bidder. Pamela's hands had shaken as she copied everything to a secure cloud drive. She didn't know who else at the company was involved. Didn't know how deep the conspiracy ran. The only person she could trust was her father. And he was in Singapore negotiating a deal that would define the company's future. She couldn't distract him with this. Not yet. Not until he was home and could handle it properly. So she waited, and she watched over her shoulder. And she didn't realize that the moment she'd accessed those files, someone had been alerted. Someone knew what she'd discovered. Thursday evening, 8:00 p.m. The sisters sat in the kitchen eating takeout Thai food. Pamela's favorite pad see-ew and Emily's spring rolls. Emily had her math homework spread across the marble island, struggling with long division. Pamela picked at her food, phone face up beside her plate, checking it every 30 seconds. "Pamela?" Emily asked. "Are you sure you're okay?" "I'm fine, Em. Just waiting for Dad to—" Pamela's phone buzzed. She grabbed it, read the message, and her face drained of color. "What is it?" "Nothing. It's nothing." But Pamela's voice had gone tight and high. She stood abruptly. "Em, I need you to do something for me. If anything weird happens tonight, anything at all, I need you to run straight to the panic room. You remember the code? 52283. But Pamela, you're scaring me." The sound of shattering glass exploded from the front of the house. Pamela's face went white as paper. She grabbed Emily's hand, her grip crushing. "Run, now. Get to the panic room." But Emily's feet wouldn't move. She stood frozen at the top of the grand staircase that swept down into the mansion's marble foyer, watching as three men in dark clothes stepped through the broken glass of the front entrance. They wore ski masks. They moved with military precision, fanning out, weapons drawn. The security alarm should have been screaming, should have automatically notified police and triggered lockdown protocols. But the house remained silent, except for the crunch of glass under tactical boots. Someone had disabled it from the inside. Someone with access codes. "Pamela Murray!" one of the men shouted, his voice echoing through the foyer. We know you're here. Make this easy on yourself." Pamela stepped in front of Emily, shielding her smaller sister with her body. "Emily, please, run, now." "Where is she?" another man barked. Then he looked up and saw them at the top of the stairs. "There!" Pamela shoved Emily backward. "Go!" But before Emily could move, Pamela was running down the stairs, drawing the men away from her little sister. Emily watched in horror as her brilliant, brave sister, who solved quantum equations and dreamed of MIT, ran straight toward three armed men. "Looking for me!" Pamela screamed. "I'm right here!" The men converged on her in the foyer. Pamela fought like a wildcat, kicking, scratching, screaming. She was tall and athletic, had taken self-defense classes, but she was one 17-year-old girl against three grown men. "Where are the files?" The largest man grabbed her arms, yanking them behind her back. "What did you do with them?" Another man searched her pockets roughly, pulled out her phone. "I sent everything to the FBI!" Pamela screamed. "They already have it all. You're too late." The man holding her phone looked at the leader. "She's lying. There's no sent messages. But she accessed the files 3 days ago." "Where are they?" The leader's voice went deadly quiet. "Go to hell!" His fist came up fast, caught Pamela across the face with a sickening crack. She staggered, tried to stay on her feet, but another blow sent her spinning. Her head struck the marble pillar at the base of the stairs. The sound echoed through the house like a gunshot. Pamela crumpled. Blood began pooling beneath her head, spreading across white marble in a dark crimson lake. Emily's hand flew to her mouth, choking off her scream. She couldn't breathe, couldn't think. Her sister wasn't moving at all. "Check her," the leader ordered. One of the men knelt, fingers against Pamela's neck. "She's still alive. Barely." "Good. Search her phone, her laptop. Find those files." He smashed Pamela's phone against the floor, plastic and glass exploding. "We need to search the whole house. Find her computer." They started toward the stairs. Emily's paralysis broke. She turned and ran, not toward the panic room, but toward the garage. Because somewhere in her terror-shocked brain, one thought crystallized with absolute clarity. The panic room was a trap. If these men had the security codes, if they'd disabled the alarm, then someone inside the company had helped them. Someone with high-level access. She couldn't trust the security team. Couldn't trust anyone at Murray Industries, except one person. Emily burst into the garage, slapped the wall panel, and dove into her father's Tesla Model S as the garage door began its agonizingly slow rise. She'd watched Pamela drive 100 times. Had made her sister teach her just in case. Just in case of what? Pamela had laughed at the time. Just in case of this. Emily's small fingers found the emergency override code panel. She punched in the sequence Pamela had made her memorize. 7739 start. The Tesla hummed to life. "Autopilot," Emily commanded, her voice shaking. "Murray Industries, downtown tower, go!" The car rolled forward smoothly, its AI engaging. Navigation calculating. 12 minutes to destination. 12 minutes while her sister lay bleeding on marble floors. Emily clutched Pamela's blood-stained phone case, the one that had flown from her sister's hand during the attack. Her hands were shaking so hard she could barely hold it. Tears streamed down her face, but she forced the words out, a prayer and a promise combined. "Hold on, Pamela. I'm getting help. Please, hold on." The Tesla accelerated smoothly onto the main road, its headlights cutting through the darkness. Behind her, the mansion's lights blazed, a beautiful trap where her sister lay dying. Ahead, downtown towers glittered against the night sky. Murray Industries stood tallest among them, its logo lit bright against dark glass. And somewhere in that building was William Wells. The Tesla pulled up to Murray Industries' entrance at 8:50 p.m., exactly 12 minutes after Emily had left the estate. She didn't wait for the car to fully stop, just yanked the door handle and tumbled out onto the sidewalk. Her white dress was torn at the hem from scrambling through the garage. Blood smeared her small hands and streaked her clothes. Tears had left tracks down her dirt-smudged face. Emily ran. She crashed through the revolving glass doors and sprinted across the marble lobby toward the elevators, toward the man in the blue work uniform mopping near the elevator bank, the man who never asked for anything, the man who'd saved a construction worker with absolute certainty, the man who was the only person in the entire world she trusted to save her sister. "Mr. William! Mr. William! Please!" The security guard's SUV screamed through city streets, lights flashing red and blue against darkened storefronts, siren wailing like a wounded animal. William sat rigid in the passenger seat, one hand braced against the dashboard, the other clenched into a fist against his thigh. Emily huddled in the back, silent except for her ragged breathing. 3 minutes. The estate was 3 minutes away at this speed. William's mind shifted into combat mode, a mental state he hadn't accessed in 5 years, thought he'd never access again. The transition was visceral, physical. His heart rate slowed, even as adrenaline flooded his system. Vision sharpened. Hearing became hyperacute. Time seemed to stretch and slow. Mental calculations ran automatically. Head trauma, minimum 15 minutes since impact based on Emily's timeline. Internal bleeding probable. Intracranial pressure building. Every minute decreased survival odds by 8%. Respiratory compromise likely if there was thoracic involvement. His hands clenched and unclenched rhythmically. An old habit, keeping blood flow steady, maintaining fine motor control for what was coming. Then the flashbacks hit. Sand. So much sand. Blood soaking into it, turning it dark and wet. Rodriguez's face, pale as paper, his hands trying to hold his abdomen together. "Stay with me, Rod. Stay with me." But the blood kept coming. Always too much blood. Peterson screaming for a medic even though William was right there, right beside him, hands already moving, already trying to stop the arterial spray. I'm here. But it didn't matter. 12 faces, 12 names, Jackson, Morrison, Chen, all of them looking at him with dying eyes that said, "You were supposed to save us." William's breathing quickened. His vision tunneled. The present moment began slipping away, replaced by desert heat and the metallic stench of death. And, "Mr. William," Emily's small voice from the back seat, "are you okay?" He forced his eyes open, forced himself back into the SUV. The city streets. The mission, not now. Not tonight. You don't get to break down now. A 17-year-old girl is dying, and she needs you functional." "I'm okay, Emily," he said, and was surprised his voice came out steady. "We're almost there." The SUV took a corner too fast, tires squealing. 2 minutes. The estate gates stood open, a gaping mouth in the security fence. The guard slowed, professional instincts screaming that something was wrong, but William barked, "Don't stop! Go!" They crashed through, gravel spraying. The SUV skidded to a halt in the circular driveway. William was moving before it fully stopped, hitting the ground running. His 4-year-old janitor shuffle transformed into the sprint of a man half his age. The front door hung open, shattered glass glittering on marble like fallen stars. William's boots crunched over it. Emily's sneakers pattered behind him. The security guard followed, already calling for backup. His voice tight with controlled panic. "This is Wagner, Murray Estate. We have a break-in and critical injuries. Need all available units and ambulance." Then William saw her. Pamela Murray lay in the center of the marble foyer like a broken doll someone had dropped and forgotten. Blood pooled beneath her head, spreading in a dark halo across white stone. Her breathing was shallow, erratic, the wet, labored sound of lungs struggling. Her skin had taken on a grayish tint that William recognized instantly. Shock, oxygen deprivation, system shut down. 2 estate security guards stood 10 feet away, frozen, useless. One had a phone pressed to his ear. "Ambulance is en route. ETA 10 minutes. "She doesn't have 10 minutes. William's voice cut through like a blade. Both guards turned, startled. They saw a janitor in a blue work uniform, blood-stained from carrying Emily, and their faces showed confusion. Who the hell is this? But something in William's eyes made them both take a step back. Master Sergeant William Wells had returned. "You!" William pointed at the nearest guard. "Get me clean towels. Now. You, ice from the kitchen, whatever you have. You," he spun on the guard with the phone, "call that ambulance back. Tell them critical head trauma, possible tension pneumothorax. They need to move their asses. Go!" His voice cracked like a rifle shot. The guards scrambled to obey, their training recognizing command authority, even if their brains couldn't process where it was coming from. Emily stood at the edge of the foyer, both hands over her mouth, eyes huge and terrified. William dropped to his knees beside Pamela. His hands moved with practiced precision, muscle memory taking over after 5 years of forced dormancy. Check airway, clear but compromised. Check breathing, shallow, labored, uneven chest rise. Check circulation, pulse weak and thready, skin cold and clammy. His fingers moved gently to Pamela's neck, palpating the cervical spine with careful pressure. "T-spine injury possible," he said to no one and everyone. "Nobody move her, nobody touch her, except me." He moved to her head, examining the wound. Depressed skull fracture, bleeding controlled now, but damage done. He needed to assess pupils. Gently, he lifted one eyelid, then the other. Left pupil, responsive. Right pupil, fixed and dilated. Brain bleed, increasing intracranial pressure. Clock was ticking faster now. William moved his assessment to her chest, hands pressing gently along her ribcage. When he reached the left side, Pamela's breathing hitched. A small, unconscious sound of pain. He pressed his ear to her chest, listening. Decreased breath sounds on the left side, hyperresonant to percussion. "Collapsed lung," he said aloud. "Tension pneumothorax." One of the guards returned with towels. William used them to apply direct pressure to the head wound, showing the guard how to maintain it. The other guard appeared with a bowl of ice. William's hands were shaking now. The PTSD was clawing its way back up, triggered by blood and unconscious victims, and the desperate mathematics of trauma medicine. Rodriguez, dying in his arms. Morrison's last breath rattling in his chest. Chen's blood soaking through combat gauze faster than William could pack the wound. I can't save you. God, I can't save any of you. His breathing quickened. His vision started to tunnel again. The faces of his dead unit superimposed themselves over Pamela's gray features. 12 ghosts demanding to know why he got to live when they didn't. Mr. William? Emily's voice, small and terrified, cut through the flashback. You can save her, right? William looked at Emily's tear-streaked face. 8 years old. Covered in her sister's blood. Trusting he with everything she had, because she'd seen him save a construction worker, and believed, truly believed, he could do it again. Something steadied inside him. The shaking stopped. The ghosts receded. His breathing evened out. Yes, William said, and meant it. I can save her. He turned to the security guard. I need a pen, one that comes apart, and alcohol, whiskey, vodka, anything. What are you? Now! The guard ran for the home office, returned 30 seconds later with a Mont Blanc pen and a bottle of single malt scotch from the bar. William disassembled the pen with quick, efficient movements, discarding the ink cartridge, leaving only the hollow barrel. He sterilized it with scotch, let the excess drip off. Her lung collapsed, William explained, his voice calm now, clinical. Air's building up in her chest cavity, compressing her heart and good lung. She'll die in minutes if I don't release the pressure. The security guards went pale. William's hands moved with absolute certainty now. No tremor, no hesitation. He located the landmark with 2 fingers. Second intercostal space, mid-clavicular line, just below the collarbone. This was battlefield medicine, desperate and crude and effective. One swift motion. The pen barrel punctured through skin and intercostal muscle with a soft pop. There was a rush of air, trapped pressure releasing with an audible hiss. Pamela's chest suddenly expanded, her breathing immediately less labored. Color began returning to her face, gray fading to pale pink. William left the improvised chest tube in place, his hand steady on it, monitoring. He continued his other interventions, maintaining her airway, controlling bleeding, checking vitals every 30 seconds. This is who he was, one of the guards whispered to the other. This is who he's always been. In the distance, sirens wailed, growing closer. Emily knelt beside William, her small presence grounding him to the present moment. You saved her, Emily whispered. William's voice cracked. Not yet, but I'm trying. 2 minutes later, paramedics burst through the door with their equipment and urgent efficiency. They took one look at Pamela, stabilized, breathing, alive, and then at William's field interventions. The lead paramedic, a woman in her 40s with sharp eyes, examined the improvised chest decompression. Who did this? The janitor, one of the security guards said, his voice awed. The paramedic looked at William with professional respect bordering on disbelief. This is military-grade field medicine. Textbook needle decompression. Who are you? William didn't answer. He just watched as they transferred Pamela to their gurney, replacing his crude interventions with proper medical equipment, starting IVs, applying oxygen, moving with the controlled urgency of professionals who knew their patient was stable enough to survive transport. As they wheeled her toward the ambulance, William sat back against the blood-stained marble pillar, the same one Pamela's head had struck. His hands were trembling again now that the crisis had passed. Blood covered them, Pamela's blood, drying dark under his fingernails. Tears streamed down his face. "I didn't freeze," he whispered to the empty foyer, to the ghosts of 12 soldiers who'd died 5 years ago in desert sand. Not this time. Emily sat beside him. Her small hand slipped into his blood-stained one, warm and trusting and alive. Outside, more sirens approached. Police, more ambulances, the machinery of emergency response converging on the Murray estate. Inside, the secret was out. By morning, the entire city would know about the invisible janitor who saved the billionaire's daughter with battlefield medicine and hands that remembered how to save lives. But right now, William Wells just closed his eyes and let himself feel it. The weight of 5 years of guilt and grief and self-imposed exile, and underneath it, emerging like dawn through darkness, something lighter. The knowledge that when it mattered most, when a life hung in the balance, he hadn't frozen. He'd done what he was trained to do. He'd saved someone. The invisible man had finally broken through. The hospital waiting room smelled like antiseptic and burnt coffee, with undertones of anxiety and old magazines. William sat alone on an uncomfortable plastic chair, fluorescent lights humming overhead, still wearing his blood-stained blue work uniform. He hadn't thought to change, hadn't thought about anything except getting to the hospital, making sure Pamela made it to surgery, ensuring Emily was safe. It was 3:00 a.m. The surgery had been ongoing for 2 hours. Emily slept fitfully beside him, her small body curled across 3 chairs, her head resting on William's lap. She'd finally collapsed around midnight, exhausted by terror and adrenaline crash. William kept one hand on her shoulder, a gentle, protective weight, while his other hand clenched and unclenched rhythmically, unable to stay still. Security guards were posted outside the waiting room now, not to keep people out, but to keep William and Emily safe. The same guards who'd watched William perform battlefield medicine in a marble foyer now treated him with confused respect. Their body language shifted from suspicion to deference. They didn't understand who he was, but they understood what he'd done. Through the waiting room windows, William could see news vans gathering in the parking lot like circling vultures. 3 at midnight. 5 by 1:00 a.m. 7 now. The story was spreading through the city like wildfire. Mysterious janitor saves billionaire's daughter. Someone had filmed part of the rescue on their phone. Someone always did. William closed his eyes and wished for invisibility that would never return. At 4:30 a.m., the waiting room doors burst open with enough force to make Emily stir and the security guards reach for their weapons. Carl Murray stood in the doorway, and William barely recognized him. The billionaire tech mogul, who always looked camera-ready, sharp suits, perfect hair, commanding presence, was gone. This man wore a rumpled suit that looked slept in, his tie missing, his shirt partially untucked. His face was haggard, eyes red-rimmed and wild. He'd aged a decade in the hours since his daughter was attacked. His eyes found William immediately, found Emily sleeping against him. "You're the one who saved her." Carl's voice was hoarse, raw. William nodded, not trusting his own voice. Carl crossed the waiting room in 3 strides. For a moment, William thought the billionaire might hit him. There was that much intensity in his approach. Instead, Carl grabbed William's free hand in both of his and held it like a lifeline. "Thank you." Carl's voice broke. "God, thank you." She's still in surgery, William said quietly. It's been 2 hours. They said it could be another hour, maybe 2. Carl sank into the chair beside William, his head dropping into his hands. His shoulders shook with silent sobs, the kind that came from a man who'd already lost his wife to cancer and couldn't bear the thought of losing his daughter to violence. After a long moment, Carl raised his head and looked at William with red eyes. Really looked at him, seeing him for perhaps the first time, despite 4 years of invisible presence in his building. The paramedics said, Carl's voice steadied with effort. They said whoever performed the field intervention knew what they were doing. Military-grade medicine, they called it. How did you know what to do? William was silent at first. 4 years of practiced invisibility, of deflecting questions, of offering nothing of himself. But sitting here in a hospital waiting room with a man's unconscious daughter, 3 floors above them, and his youngest daughter, asleep against his leg, the walls finally crumbled. I used to be a medic, William said quietly. Military. Carl waited, sensing there was more. William's resistance crumbled under exhaustion and emotion, and the weight of 5 years of silence. Master Sergeant, 75th Ranger Regiment, combat medic. Your Special Forces. Was. The correction was automatic. I resigned 5 years ago. Why? The question hung in the antiseptic air. William looked down at his blood-stained hands. Pamela's blood now, not his unit's, but the stains felt the same. 5 years ago, I led a medical unit in a classified operation, William said, his voice flat, clinical, the only way he could tell it. Somewhere in the Middle East. I can't tell you where. We were providing medical support for a reconnaissance mission in hostile territory. It was supposed to be routine. Extract intel, get out clean. He paused, his jaw working. We got ambushed. 12 soldiers under my care. My brothers. Men I'd trained with, laughed with, promised to keep alive. That's what combat medics do. We promise. We say, if you go down, I'll bring you back. It's an unspoken oath. Carl listened without interrupting. I couldn't save any of them. William's voice cracked. Rodriguez bled out in my arms because the wounds were too extensive. Peterson died from a collapsed lung before I could get to him. Chen took shrapnel to the femoral artery, and I couldn't stop the bleeding fast enough. 12 men. 12 failures. Tears streamed down William's face now, but he kept talking, the confession pouring out after years of containment. They found me 3 days later, sole survivor, physically unharmed, but he tapped his temple, broken here. I had all this training, all these skills, years of the Army's best education in trauma medicine, and I couldn't save a single one of them. So you resigned, Carl said softly. I forfeited the right. William's voice was bitter. What good are life-saving skills when you fail when it matters most? I took off my uniform, put my medals in storage, and disappeared. Became invisible. Convinced myself I didn't deserve to use those abilities again. But you did use them. Tonight. I almost didn't. William looked at Carl, his eyes haunted. When I saw Pamela lying there, when I saw all that blood, I froze. I saw their faces, Rodriguez, Morrison, Chen, all 12 of them, heard their voices asking why I let them die. My hands were shaking. I couldn't breathe. I was back in the desert, failing all over again. What changed? Emily. William glanced down at the sleeping child. She asked me if I could save her sister. She trusted me completely, this 8-year-old girl who had no reason to trust anyone, and I realized I had a choice. I could freeze, and let the past win, or I could push through and give Pamela the chance my unit never got. Carl placed a hand on William's shoulder, the gesture firm and grounding. "You saved my daughter," Carl said. "You were the only one who could have." The paramedic said another 5 minutes, and she would have died from the pressure on her heart. "I should have been faster." "You pushed through PTSD and 5 years of guilt to save a girl's life," Carl interrupted. "Everything you survived, every day you spent invisible, every hour you carried that grief. It all led to this moment. You didn't fail your unit, William. You carried their memory forward. And tonight, that memory saved Pamela's life." William's breath hitched. He'd never thought of it that way, never considered that surviving might be its own kind of purpose. Before he could respond, the surgical wing doors opened. A woman in scrubs emerged, pulling down her surgical mask. Dr. Sarah Chen, according to her name tag, scanned the waiting room and headed straight for them. Carl stood so fast, he nearly knocked over his chair. "How is she?" "The surgery went well. She's stable." Dr. Chen's voice was professionally calm but warm. "Severe concussion, depressed skull fracture that we've repaired, significant blood loss, but no permanent brain damage that we can detect. The collapsed lung has been reinflated and is functioning properly." Carl's legs seemed to give out. He sat down hard, his head in his hands, shoulders shaking with relief. "Dr. Sautz." Chen turned to William. "The field intervention saved her life. The needle decompression prevented cardiac arrest from tension pneumothorax. Another 5 minutes, and the pressure on her heart would have been fatal." She looked at him with clear professional respect. Whoever performed that procedure knew exactly what they were doing. "Former military?" William nodded. "She's very lucky you were there, Master Sergeant." Emily stirred, woken by the voices. She sat up, rubbing her eyes, her hair sticking up at odd angles. "Is Pamela okay?" "She's going to be fine, sweetheart," Dr. Chen said gently. Emily threw her arms around William with enough force to nearly knock him off his chair. "I knew it. I knew you could save her." Carl watched this. His 8-year-old daughter embracing a man he'd walked past hundreds of times without truly seeing, trusting him completely, finding comfort in his presence. Something shifted in Carl's expression. "How long have you two been friends?" Carl asked quietly. 6 months, Emily said, her face still pressed against William's chest. "Mr. William teaches me things. He listens to me. He's nice." Carl felt a pang of guilt, sharp as a knife. 6 months his daughter had been finding solace in the basement corridors with a janitor, because her own father was too busy building an empire to notice her loneliness. But alongside the guilt came gratitude. This quiet man had filled a void Carl hadn't even realized existed. "Thank you," Carl said again. "For everything. For Emily, too." A hospital administrator appeared at the waiting room door, her face apologetic but urgent. "Mr. Murray, I'm sorry to interrupt, but there are news crews outside demanding statements. The story has exploded overnight. It's trending nationally." "Invisible hero," one of the security guards said, checking his phone. "It's the #1 trending topic. Video of the rescue has 3 million views already." Carl looked at William, who'd gone pale. "I don't want attention," William said. "I just wanted to know she's okay." "I understand." Carl's voice was gentle. "But you saved my daughter's life in front of witnesses and cell phone cameras. That's going to make you visible whether you want it or not." Before William could respond, 2 detectives entered the waiting room, badges displayed. They needed statements about the attack. Who were the intruders? Why was Pamela targeted? What did they want? William gave a clear, detailed account, his military training evident in his precise timeline, his tactical observations about the attacker's entry methods and professional coordination. Carl had no answers. He'd been in Singapore. But as William described what Emily had overheard, "Where are the files?" Carl's face darkened with understanding and rage. "Files," he repeated. They were after specific files. The pieces were falling into place, and the picture was ugly. As dawn broke through the waiting room windows, painting everything in shades of gold and pink, Carl Murray made a decision. This man had saved his daughter's life. More than that, Emily trusted him in a way she trusted no one else, not even her own father. William Wells had been invisible for too long, hiding from guilt and grief, convinced he had no right to use his gifts. It was time to bring him into the light, and it was time to find out who had tried to kill Pamela and why. By noon, Pamela was awake. Carl sat on one side of her hospital bed, Emily on the other, both holding her hands like anchors, keeping her tethered to the world. William stood near the door, his back against the wall, uncomfortable with the family intimacy but unwilling to leave. He'd changed into borrowed scrubs. A nurse had taken pity on his blood-stained uniform, but he still felt out of place. This wasn't his family, wasn't his world. Except Emily kept looking back at him, making sure he was still there. Pamela's eyes fluttered open, unfocused and confused. Monitors beeped steadily. IV fluids dripped. A ventilator had been removed an hour ago, leaving her voice hoarse and weak. "Emily?" The word came out as barely a whisper. "You're okay?" Emily burst into tears, pressing her face against her sister's hand. "You saved me. You ran at them so I could get away." "Had to." Pamela's lips curved into the ghost of a smile. "Big sister job description." Her eyes tracked across the room, taking in her father's haggard face, the hospital equipment, the bandages wrapped around her head. Then her gaze found William by the door. Something flickered in her expression. Recognition. "The janitor?" Her voice was confused. "Emily's friend from the basement?" "Former janitor, apparently," William said quietly. Pamela's brow furrowed, trying to piece together fragmented memories. What happened?" "William saved you," Emily said, her voice thick with tears. "You were dying, and I got him, and he saved you." Pamela looked at William with new eyes, seeing past the borrowed scrubs to something deeper. "Thank you," she whispered. "Thank you for saving my sister, for saving me." William nodded, not trusting his voice. Once Pamela was more alert, the pain medication still making her groggy, but her mind clearing, Carl leaned forward, his voice gentle but urgent. "Sweetheart, I need to understand. Who were those men? Why were you targeted?" Pamela's face darkened. She looked at Emily, then back to her father. "Dad, there's something you need to know. Something bad." She told him everything. About searching for tax documents on his home computer. About finding the hidden folder labeled V-Cross Transactions. About opening it out of curiosity and finding systematic theft documented in spreadsheets and transaction records. "Victor Cross." Her voice strengthened as she spoke, anger cutting through the fog of medication. "Your business partner. He's been stealing from Murray Industries for 2 years. Our breakthrough AI technology, sold to foreign competitors through shell companies. Millions of dollars. Maybe hundreds of millions." Carl's face went white. "That's not possible. Victor wouldn't." I saw the files, Dad. His digital signatures, his authorization codes, every transaction. Pamela's eyes filled with tears. I copied everything to a secure cloud drive before they came. I was going to tell you when you got back from Singapore, but someone knew I'd accessed the files. They came to silence me. Carl stood abruptly, his chair scraping against linoleum. He walked to the window, his hands gripping the sill hard enough to whiten his knuckles. Victor Cross, his business partner for a decade. The man who'd stood beside him at Sarah's funeral. Who'd been best man at his wedding. Who Carl trusted like a brother. The betrayal cut deeper than any business loss. Are you sure? Carl's voice was hollow. I'm sure. Within an hour, Carl's personal attorney arrived. Within 2 hours, FBI Cybercrimes Division had agents at the hospital. Pamela, still weak but determined, provided her cloud access credentials from her hospital bed. Special Agent Rebecca Martinez commandeered a conference room and pulled up the files on her laptop. Her face grew darker with each page she scrolled through. Mr. Parentor Murray, she said finally, looking up at Carl with professional sympathy. Your daughter just handed us the biggest corporate espionage case we've seen in 5 years. This is massive. Systematic theft of intellectual property. Estimated losses around $300 million. Foreign competitors obtained your proprietary AI technology years before market launch. Carl sank into a chair. 300 million. Years of work. His company's future. Stolen by a man he'd called friend. But it gets worse, Agent Martinez continued. Cross isn't working alone. We're seeing authorization codes from multiple executives. Victor Cross, yes, but also James Peterson, your head of security, Linda Chen, your CFO, Marcus Webb, VP of R&D. This conspiracy runs deep. Peterson? William said from the doorway. Everyone turned to look at him. That explains how they disabled the estate security system. Inside access codes. Agent Martinez nodded. Exactly. This was an inside job from the beginning. Your daughter was targeted because she discovered the evidence. The attack was meant to silence her permanently. Emily made a small sound of distress. Carl pulled her close. We need detailed statements, Agent Martinez said. Especially from you, Mr. Wells. You were first on scene. William sat across from Detectives Rodriguez and Chen in a different conference room, walking them through the attack with tactical precision. His military training made his recollection unnaturally detailed. Entry points, number of assailants, their movement patterns, weapons carried, phrases overheard. 3 men, professional entry, knew the security codes, William said. They asked specifically about files. This wasn't a robbery. They were sent to retrieve evidence and eliminate the witness. Detective Rodriguez leaned back, studying William with new respect. You have experience with this kind of operation? Different context, same principles. Ranger Regiment? Detective Chen asked. Yes. My brother served with the 75th, Chen said quietly. Good men. William's jaw tightened. The best. Agent Martinez returned to Pamela's room with an update that made Carl's blood run cold. Cross doesn't know your daughter survived, she said. The news reported a critical injury, not that she's awake and talking. Once he finds out she's alive and cooperating with the FBI, he might try again. My daughters aren't safe, Carl said, his voice tight. We can provide protection, but our resources are limited. And, Carl turned to William, will you help us? Keep my daughters safe until this is over? William hesitated. He'd come to Murray Industries to hide, to be invisible, to avoid responsibility. Taking this role meant stepping back into the world, risking failure, possibly letting someone else die because of his limitations. But Emily's trusting face looked up at him. Pamela's grateful eyes watched from her hospital bed. And somewhere in his mind, 12 ghosts seemed to whisper, "This is your chance. Protect them. Honor us by protecting them." "I'm not qualified for private security," William said. "You're qualified to keep my daughters alive," Carl said firmly. "That's all I need." William thought of his unit, of Rodriguez and Morrison and Chen, of 12 brothers he couldn't save, and maybe this was his chance to honor their memory, not by hiding, but by protecting, not by running from his skills, but by using them for something that mattered. "Okay," William said. "I'll help, until this is over." Relief washed over Carl's face. "Thank you." The hospital became a fortress. Security increased around Pamela's room, armed guards, restricted access, FBI surveillance. Carl arranged for Emily to stay with trusted family friends temporarily, despite her tearful protests. "I want to stay with you and Pamela," Emily said. "You will, sweetheart. Soon. But right now, the safest place for you is somewhere nobody knows about." William coordinated with FBI and local police, his tactical mind engaging after years of dormancy. He walked Pamela's floor 3 times, identifying vulnerabilities, suggesting improvements. The law enforcement personnel listened with growing respect. "Ranger Regiment," one FBI agent said. "Not a question." "Yes. We're glad you're on our side." Across the city, in a corner office 20 floors up in Murray Industries Tower, Victor Cross received the news that shattered his carefully constructed world. "She's alive," his contact said over an encrypted line. "Pamela Murray. She's awake. She's talking to the FBI." Victor's hand clenched around his phone hard enough to crack the screen. He'd been so careful. 2 years of systematic theft, hidden behind layers of shell companies and offshore accounts. He was supposed to be in the Cayman Islands by now, enjoying his $300 million in retirement. But the girl had survived, and worse, she had the files. "The feds have everything," his contact continued. "They're building a case. You have maybe 12 hours before arrest warrants are issued." Victor looked out his window at the city he'd helped build, the company he'd helped create. Carl Murray had been his friend once. Before Carl had everything, the company, the success, the perfect family, while Victor had worked just as hard for half the recognition. He'd told himself the theft was justified. Carl didn't deserve all that success. Victor had earned his share. Now it was all collapsing. "What about loose ends?" Victor asked. "Peterson's been arrested. Chen fled to Taiwan. Webb's gone dark." Victor's mind raced. If he was going down, he'd leave nothing behind for Carl to salvage. No evidence, no files, nothing but ashes. "Burn it all," Victor said. "Leave no evidence." He made 3 calls on burner phones. Within minutes, his plan was in motion. At the hospital, William's phone buzzed. A security alert from Murray Industries' building management system. He pulled it out, his blood running cold. Fire alarm activated. Floors 3, 12, 20. Multiple points of origin. Emergency services notified. William walked to the window. In the distance, he could see the Murray Industries Tower, the building where he'd been invisible for 4 years. Smoke was beginning to rise from multiple floors, dark plumes against the afternoon sky. Carl joined him at the window, his phone already ringing with alerts. "Victor," Carl said, his voice hollow. "He's destroying evidence." William watched the smoke rise, his military training calculating angles and accelerants and deliberate sabotage. This wasn't over. Victor Cross was still out there, desperate and dangerous, and willing to burn everything to avoid capture. The fight had just begun. Murray Industries burned. From the hospital window, William watched firefighters battle flames on 3 floors simultaneously. Floors 3, 12, and 20. The tower that had been his home for 4 years, where he'd been invisible and safe, now stood gutted and smoking against the afternoon sky. Fire trucks surrounded the building like toy soldiers around a dying giant. Arson investigators arrived within the hour. Their preliminary report was damning. Deliberately set, accelerant used, specifically designed to destroy server rooms and records storage. Someone who knew the building's layout had targeted the exact locations where digital evidence would be stored. Victor Cross was covering his tracks. Carl stood beside William at the window, his phone pressed to his ear, coordinating with his insurance company, his board of directors, his remaining executives. His life's work was burning, $300 million in theft, and now millions more in fire damage. But when he ended the call, his only words were, "My daughters stay safe. That's all that matters." By evening, the FBI had raided Victor Cross's penthouse apartment in the luxury high-rise overlooking the bay. They found it empty, systematically cleaned out. No computers, no documents, no personal effects. Just expensive furniture and empty closet space where a life used to be. His bank accounts had been drained overnight. Offshore transfers to the Cayman Islands, Switzerland, Singapore. His private jet had filed a flight plan to Grand Cayman, scheduled to depart at 6:00 a.m. But the jet never took off. "Misdirection," Agent Martinez said, briefing Carl and William in a hospital conference room. "Cross is too smart to run predictably. He wanted us to think he fled the country while he's actually still here, still in the city." "Why would he stay?" Carl asked. "He has the money. He could disappear." "Because he's desperate," William said quietly. Everyone turned to look at him. Desperate men don't think clearly. They fixate. Right now, Cross is probably convinced that if he can eliminate Pamela as a witness, destroy all the evidence, he can still win somehow. Logic says run, but desperation says fight. Agent Martinez nodded grimly, which makes him extremely dangerous. He has resources, international contacts, and nothing left to lose. That's the most dangerous combination there is. That evening, Carl made it official. He hired William Wells as the family's personal security consultant, temporary position until the threat was neutralized. William tried to refuse payment, but Carl was insistent. "You're risking your life to protect my daughters. You're getting paid." The transformation was immediate and total. William was no longer the invisible janitor who mopped floors and emptied trash. The master sergeant returned in full force, bringing 4 years of dormant tactical expertise back online. He secured Pamela's hospital room like a forward operating base, coordinated with FBI, local police, and hospital security to establish protocols, rotation schedules, backup communications. He identified vulnerabilities in the hospital's layout and had them addressed within hours. When he gave orders, people followed without question. His tone left no room for debate. One hospital security supervisor muttered to his colleague, "Who the hell is this guy?" "Former Special Forces. Saved the girl's life with battlefield medicine." "Oh, that explains it." 2 days later, Pamela was stable enough to be moved. Carl transferred the family to a secure location, a mansion in a gated community 30 minutes outside the city. The neighborhood had private security, but William insisted on upgrades. He coordinated installation of military-grade systems, motion sensors on the perimeter, cameras covering every angle, reinforced entry points, a properly stocked panic room with independent communications. He slept in shifts, never fully off duty, his internal clock reset to the hypervigilance of deployment. Emily was brought back under heavy security. The moment she saw William, she ran to him, throwing her arms around his waist. "Are we safe now?" William knelt to her level, his hands steady on her shoulders. "I'm going to make sure you are." "I'm not scared," Emily said with 8-year-old certainty. "You're here." That simple trust broke something in William's chest, the last wall he'd built around himself, and repaired something deeper. These people needed him, not as a janitor, not as someone invisible, but as exactly who he was: a protector, a guardian, someone who knew how to keep people alive. The FBI investigation intensified. 5 other Murray Industries executives were arrested, middle managers and department heads who'd helped facilitate the theft. James Peterson, the head of security who'd disabled the estate's alarm system, was caught at the airport trying to board a flight to Mexico using a fake passport. But Victor Cross remained a ghost. "He's got safe houses we don't know about," Agent Martinez admitted during a briefing at the secure mansion. "Offshore accounts with access to cash. And he's motivated. As long as Pamela's alive and willing to testify, he's facing 20 years minimum in federal prison." Pamela, still recovering but growing stronger daily, sat up straighter in her wheelchair. "I want to testify. I want to put him away." "Sweetheart," Carl said gently, "you need to focus on healing. He tried to kill me, Dad. He stole from us, from you, from everyone who works at Murray Industries. I'm not hiding." Her voice was steel wrapped in bandages. "I'm testifying." William watched her from his position by the window and felt a surge of respect. She reminded him of soldiers he'd served with, scared but brave, hurt but determined, refusing to let trauma define them. That evening, Carl insisted on family dinner, the first time he'd taken consecutive days off work in years. Emily set the table with careful precision, making 4 place settings. "Mr. William has to eat with us," she announced. "Emily, he might want to," Carl began. "He's part of this. He saved Pamela. He's protecting us." Emily's voice was firm. "He's having dinner with us." William stood awkwardly near the kitchen door. "I should maintain security perimeter. Please," Carl said. "Join us. I have guards outside, cameras everywhere. 30 minutes won't compromise security, and it would mean a lot to my daughters." William sat, uncomfortable but touched. Over dinner, take-out Chinese food that tasted better than anything William had eaten in years, Pamela asked about his past. Not the easy questions, but the hard ones. "Emily said you were in the military. What was it like?" William was reluctant at first, but something about this family, about their openness and their trust, made him lower his defenses. He talked about his unit. Carefully, without classified details, he told them about the brothers he'd served with. Rodriguez, who could make anyone laugh. Morrison, who wrote poetry in his spare time. Chen, who'd been engaged to a girl back home. "Were they heroes?" Emily asked, eyes wide. William's voice thickened. "Every single one of them." Carl listened quietly, understanding loss in a way few people could. He'd lost his wife. He'd almost lost his daughter. He knew what it meant to carry grief. "They'd be proud of you," Carl said softly. "What you did for Pamela. What you're doing for us." William couldn't speak, just nodded. At 10:30 p.m., William's phone rang. Agent Martinez's voice was urgent and excited. "We've got a lead. Cross's mistress came forward. She wants immunity, and she's willing to cooperate." "What does she know?" "Everything, including where he's hiding. Abandoned warehouse in the industrial district. He owns it through a shell company. We're planning a raid for dawn. Do you want to be there?" William looked at Carl, who'd overheard on speaker. Carl's expression was conflicted. "This is your choice," Carl said. "You don't owe us this." William thought of Victor Cross, the man who'd ordered 3 thugs to beat a 17-year-old girl to death, who'd threatened Emily, who'd betrayed Carl's trust and friendship, the man who, if left free, would try again. "I'll be there," William said. At 4 a.m., William stood in the FBI staging area 3 blocks from the warehouse. He wore borrowed tactical gear over civilian clothes, body armor, communications headset, identifying patches. He wasn't armed. He was consultant only, not law enforcement, but his role was critical. Tactical assessment, medical support if needed, expert opinion on breach strategies. The FBI tactical team leader briefed them. "Cross is inside. Unknown number of associates, possibly armed. Our priority is safe capture, but be prepared for resistance." Emily had found William before he left the safe house, her small face worried. "Are you going to fight bad guys?" "No, sweetheart. I'm going to help catch one." "Will you come back?" Her voice was small, scared. William remembered making similar promises to soldiers under his command, promises he couldn't keep when the ambush came. But he looked at Emily's trusting face and made a different kind of promise. Not a guarantee of safety, but a commitment to try. "Yes," he said. "I promise I'll try." Now, standing in the pre-dawn darkness with the FBI team, William's hands were steady. His mind was clear. The Master Sergeant had fully returned. And this time, everyone was coming home alive. The warehouse loomed ahead, dark and ominous. "Move out!" the team leader ordered. They advanced into the darkness, weapons ready, and William moved with them, no longer invisible, no longer hiding, but exactly who he'd always been, a protector heading into danger to save the people who couldn't save themselves. Dawn broke gray and cold over the industrial district, the kind of morning where the sun couldn't quite break through the cloud cover. The FBI tactical team had surrounded the warehouse, a sprawling former manufacturing plant with rusted metal siding and broken windows like empty eye sockets. William stood with the command unit, wearing borrowed body armor over his civilian clothes, a communications headset pressed against his ear. Agent Martinez conducted the final briefing, her voice crisp and professional. "Victor Cross is confirmed inside, possibly armed, definitely dangerous. Our priority is safe capture. We need him alive for prosecution. Questions?" She looked at William. "Your role is tactical advisor. You stay back with command. Understood?" William nodded. But he knew from experience, plans changed the moment contact was made. They always did. At 5:47 a.m., the tactical team moved in. Simultaneous entry from 3 points. Precision choreographed. William watched through binoculars from the command post 100 yards away. Flashbangs detonated with white light and thunder. Shouts echoed, "FBI, don't move! Hands where we can see them!" Radio chatter flowed clear and professional. "Team 1 in position. Team 2 clear. Moving to secondary." Then everything changed. "Shots fired! Shots fired! Agent down! We need medical now!" William's body moved before his mind caught up. He grabbed the medical kit from the command vehicle and ran toward the warehouse, ignoring Martinez's shouted orders to stand down. An agent was hit. That meant William had work to do. 5 years since he'd done this. 5 years since he'd run toward gunfire with a medical kit instead of away from it. But muscle memory took over. And suddenly, he was 25 again, in desert combat gear, moving toward wounded soldiers who needed him. He entered through the breach point Team 2 had created. Inside, the warehouse was dim and cavernous, filled with abandoned machinery and shipping containers. Bullets sparked off concrete and metal. The FBI team was pinned behind cover, returning fire against an unseen enemy. Agent down meant someone bleeding. William moved in a combat crouch, using containers for cover, his medical kit bouncing against his hip. "Medic!" someone shouted. Not the right terminology for FBI, but instinct took over in firefights. William found the wounded agent behind a shipping container, blood pooling beneath his shoulder. Brachial artery hit. The agent was bleeding out fast. His partner tried to apply pressure, but didn't have proper training. William dropped to his knees. "I've got him. Cover me." His hands moved with practiced precision. Assess, treat, evacuate. He pulled a tourniquet from the kit, applied it high on the arm with professional efficiency. Combat gauze packed into the wound to control bleeding. Pressure, monitor, reassess. Bullets flew overhead. Metal sparked. Someone was screaming orders. The wounded agent looked up at William through pain-glazed eyes. "You're the janitor?" "Former," William said, his hands never stopping their work. This was who he was, who he'd always been beneath the blue uniform and the mop. A combat medic who ran toward danger while others ran away. A protector who knew how to keep people alive when everything was trying to kill them. But what if it's not enough? The thought whispered through his mind, even as his hands stayed steady. What if, after all this, you still fail? What if Victor's men reach the safe house before you can get back? What if Emily and Pamela die because you made the wrong choice by coming here? William forced the doubt down. Not now. One crisis at a time. "Stay with me," William told the agent. "You're not dying today." The FBI negotiator was trying to talk Victor down, speaking into a megaphone from behind cover. "Victor Cross, you're surrounded. There's no way out. Make this easy on yourself." Victor's voice crackled over a stolen radio. He'd taken it from one of his private security guards. "You think I'm going to prison? Never. Carl Murray took everything from me. My recognition, my credit, my future. I helped build that company and he got all the glory." William listened to Victor's voice and recognized the tone. Delusional narcissism. A man who couldn't accept responsibility for his own choices, who'd rewritten history in his mind until he was the victim instead of the criminal. The most dangerous kind of cornered animal, one who didn't believe he'd done anything wrong. The FBI team leader, Commander Santos, called William over. "Wells, you know buildings like this. Former manufacturing plant, right? How would you approach this?" William studied the warehouse layout, his tactical mind engaging. He'd cleared buildings like this during deployments, industrial structures with catwalks, service corridors, multiple levels. Victor had positioned himself perfectly behind heavy machinery with cover on all sides. A traditional frontal assault would mean more casualties. "There's usually roof access in these old plants," William said. "Service ladders for maintenance. If I can get above him, I can provide intel on his exact position. Maybe create an opportunity for your team to move in safely." Santos was skeptical. "You know this how?" "I've done extractions in worse places. Trust me." Santos studied William for a long moment, then nodded. "Ramirez, you're with Wells. 2-person recon team. Roof access, eyes on target, report back. Do not engage unless absolutely necessary." Senior Agent Ramirez, a woman in her 30s with sharp eyes and a no-nonsense demeanor, checked her weapon and looked at William. "You don't have to do this. You're a civilian consultant." "That man tried to kill a 17-year-old girl," William said. "I'm doing this." They scaled the external ladder on the warehouse's north side, rusted metal creaking under their weight, but holding. The roof access hatch was rusted but functional. Inside, the warehouse opened up, a maze of catwalks and suspended platforms 30 feet above the main floor. William and Ramirez moved in tactical silence, weapons ready, their footsteps carefully placed on creaking metal. Below, Victor Cross stood surrounded by servers and computer equipment, stolen Murray Industries data, his insurance policy. 3 armed guards flanked him, ex-military by their stance and weapons handling. William positioned himself directly above Victor, perfect sight line. Ramirez radioed quietly, "Command, we have eyes on target. 4 hostiles, heavily armed. Target positioned behind server stacks." Victor's phone rang. He answered, and William could hear the conversation echoing in the warehouse's acoustics. "The FBI has the building completely surrounded," someone said on the other end. "Then I'm not leaving," Victor said. His voice carried an edge of desperate determination. "And I'm taking hostages if I have to." William's blood froze. What hostages? The warehouse was empty, except for Victor's team. Then Victor continued, "The men I sent to the Murray safe house should be in position by now. While the FBI wastes time here, my team eliminates the family. No witnesses, no testimony, no case." William's worst nightmare crystallized in that moment. He'd left them. He'd left Emily and Pamela and Carl at the safe house to come here. And it had been exactly what Victor wanted. Divide the opposition, strike when the defenses were weakest. Ramirez was already radioing command. "We need units at the Murray safe house immediately. Cross has a secondary team moving on the family." "Nearest units are 40 minutes out," came the response. 40 minutes. Emily would be dead in 40 minutes. Victor's guards looked around, alerted by Ramirez's radio transmission. One spotted them on the catwalk and raised his weapon. "Contact!" Ramirez shouted. Victor opened fire at the catwalk. William and Ramirez dove for cover as bullets tore through metal, sparks flying, the entire structure shuddering. Ramirez returned fire with controlled precision. Below, the FBI team used the distraction to breach, swarming in from multiple entry points. The warehouse erupted into controlled chaos. Shouts, gunfire, flashbangs, the organized violence of a tactical operation. William crawled toward the stairs. He had to get out, had to get to the safe house. 20 minutes if he drove like his life depended on it, because Emily's life did depend on it. He pulled out his personal phone, dialing Carl with shaking hands. Carl answered on the first ring. "William, lockdown now. Threats incoming to your location. Get everyone in the panic room. Trust no one from security. Verify IDs yourself. Do it now." "William, what's happening? The line went dead as a bullet struck near William's position, shattering his phone. He looked down and saw Victor staring up at him, recognition and rage twisting his features. Their eyes locked across the warehouse. Victor raised his weapon toward William. Ramirez fired first, 3 controlled shots. Victor went down, clutching his leg, his weapon skittering across concrete. FBI agents swarmed his position, securing him and his guards with professional efficiency. "Target secured!" someone shouted. "Cross is wounded, but alive." William was already moving, racing down the stairs 3 at a time, his heart hammering. He burst out of the warehouse into gray dawn light. "Wells, where are you going?" Martinez shouted. "The safe house! He sent men to kill the family!" William spotted an unmarked FBI vehicle, keys still in the ignition. He commandeered it without asking permission, engine roaring to life. The vehicle screamed out of the industrial district, lights and sirens activated. 40 minutes away normally. 20 if he pushed it. William's hands gripped the wheel hard enough to hurt. His mind calculating routes and timing and worst-case scenarios. His borrowed FBI radio crackled. "All units, respond to Murray Safe House. Active threat in progress." Then his personal backup phone rang. Carl must have called his emergency number. But it wasn't Carl's voice. It was Emily's, small and terrified. "Mr. William, there are men outside, bad men with guns. Dad locked us in the panic room, but they're trying to get in. Where are you?" William's vision blurred with tears. "Hold on, Emily. I'm coming. I promised I'd come back. I'm 20 minutes away. Just hold on. I'm scared. I know, sweetheart. But your dad's there. The panic room is strong. Just hold on for me. Can you do that?" "Okay." Her voice was so small. "Please hurry." The line stayed open. William could hear muffled sounds, pounding on doors, men shouting. Carl's voice calm and steady talking to his daughters. William pressed the accelerator to the floor. 20 minutes. He prayed it was fast enough. William's vehicle screamed through city streets, police escort clearing the way, sirens wailing like banshees. Radio chatter crackled constantly. Tactical team en route to safe house. ETA 15 minutes. William's GPS showed 8 minutes. He drove like his life depended on it. Because Emily's life, Pamela's life, Carl's life all depended on it. His mind ran tactical calculations automatically. 3 hostiles minimum based on vehicle count. Possibly more. Unknown weapons, unknown entry point. The panic room would hold for a while, but these men had come prepared. But beneath the tactical planning, memories surfaced unbidden. Rodriguez dying in desert sand. Morrison's last breath. Chen's blood on William's hands. 12 faces asking why he'd survived when they hadn't. "Not again," William whispered to the empty vehicle, to the ghosts riding with him. Not this time. He would not fail another family. He couldn't. The safe house gate stood open, twisted metal where someone had rammed through. 2 security guards lay unconscious near the entrance. Alive, but neutralized. 2 vehicles parked in the circular driveway. Engines still ticking warm. Victor's men. William parked down the street, approached tactical. He was armed now, had taken an FBI-issued sidearm from the warehouse command post. Never thought he'd carry a weapon again after leaving the military. Never wanted to. But here he was, checking the magazine, chambering around, his hands moving with muscle memory. He entered through the side entrance he'd personally installed, a reinforced door with biometric lock that only he, Carl, and the girls knew about. Inside, the house was eerily quiet, except for distant voices. "Find them. Boss wants this finished before the cops arrive. Panic room's on the second floor. We need the bypass codes. Forget codes. We'll cut through if we have to." William moved like a ghost through his own security installation, using the layout he'd memorized, staying in the blind spots of cameras that had been disabled. The master sergeant operated at full capacity now, not the janitor who mopped floors, but the special forces operator who'd cleared hostile buildings in 3 continents. First guard was in the kitchen, searching drawers for something. William approached from behind, silent, and applied a chokehold, non-lethal but effective. The guard went limp. William zip-tied his hands and moved on. Second guard near the stairs. William came from his blind side, disarmed him with a joint lock that left the guard gasping, and put him down with precise strikes to nerve clusters. Another zip tie. Still silent. The third guard heard something, the whisper of fabric, the soft exhale of breath. He turned, weapon rising. "Contact!" he shouted. No more stealth. The fight was brief, brutal, efficient. William disarmed him with years of close-quarters combat training, but the guard managed to trigger his radio before William subdued him. "We got company! Unknown hostile in the house!" 3 more converging on William's position. He could hear their boots pounding, their weapons being readied. William took cover behind a marble pillar, assessed his options, not military, hired thugs, overconfident, moving too fast, without proper clearing procedures. He could use that. William deliberately made noise, drawing them toward the west wing, away from the panic room, away from the family. A calculated risk that put himself between the threats and the Murrays, exactly where he needed to be. The firefight erupted in the mansion's great room. William firing with precision, targeting weapons and limbs, non-lethal when possible. But he would do whatever was necessary to protect this family, whatever it took. 2 guards went down, wounded but alive. The third took cover behind an overturned sofa, exchanging fire with William in careful bursts. Professional soldier like William himself. This one knew what he was doing. Tactical chess. Both waiting for the other to make a mistake. Then William heard it, the sound that stopped his heart. "Mr. William, are you here?" Emily's voice. She'd opened the panic room. "Emily, no, stay in, Teed." But the guard heard her too. His head snapped toward the sound, and William saw the calculation in his eyes. Leverage. Hostage. Game changer. The guard moved toward the hallway where Emily's voice had come from. William broke cover without thinking, stepped into the open, putting himself between the guard and Emily. The guard's weapon swung toward him. 2 shots fired simultaneously. The guard's bullet caught William high in the shoulder, spinning him around with the impact. William's shot was truer, center mass, stopping the threat permanently. William stumbled, his left arm suddenly useless, blood soaking through his shirt. But he was moving, had to keep moving. He found Emily in the hallway, frozen with terror, and scooped her up with his good arm. "I've got you," William gasped. "You're safe." Emily buried her face in his chest, sobbing. Sirens wailed outside. Police tactical team arriving. Boots thundered up the driveway. Shouts of "clear" and "secure" echoed through the house. William sank to the floor, his back against the wall. Emily held tight against his chest. His shoulder burned like fire, but the bleeding was controlled. Through and through, he assessed clinically. He'd live. EMTs swarmed minutes later. They tried to take Emily from him, but she wouldn't let go. "It's okay, sweetheart," William said softly. "I'm okay. Let them help me." Carl, Pamela, and the household staff emerged from the panic room, all unharmed. Carl's face crumpled when he saw William bleeding on the floor with Emily. "You came back." Carl's voice was thick. "I promised," William said. Emily finally released him, and the EMTs went to work. Carl knelt beside William, his hand on his good shoulder. "Thank you," Carl said. "Thank you for protecting my family." The hospital. Again, William was treated, his shoulder wound cleaned and bandaged, through and through, just as he'd assessed. He refused to stay overnight despite doctors' orders. Carl, Pamela, and Emily wouldn't leave his side. Agent Martinez arrived with updates. Victor Cross in custody, wounded but alive, already confessing to everything. All conspirators arrested. Murray Industries' stolen data recovered from the warehouse servers. The FBI had enough evidence for prosecutions that would put them all away for decades. "It's over," Martinez said. "You're all safe now." Late evening in a private hospital room, Carl sat beside William's bed while Emily dozed in a chair and Pamela read quietly in the corner. "I can never repay what you've done," Carl said quietly. "I didn't do it for payment." William's voice was hoarse. "I know, but I want to offer you something anyway." Carl leaned forward. "Head of security at Murray Industries, permanent position, real job, real salary, real future. Help me rebuild what Victor destroyed. But more than that," Carl's voice caught, "be part of this family, because that's what you've already become." William hesitated. "I'm not sure I'm the right person for—" "Oh, you literally saved our lives," Pamela interjected, looking up from her book. "Twice. If that doesn't qualify you, nothing does. Please stay, Mr. William," Emily said, suddenly awake. "Please, we need you." William looked at this family. Carl, who'd lost his wife and nearly lost his daughter. Pamela, who'd survived an assassination attempt and come out stronger. Emily, who'd trusted him when she had no reason to trust anyone. He saw in them what he'd lost 5 years ago. People worth protecting. People who gave his skills meaning. People who made survival feel like purpose instead of punishment. "Okay," William said. "I'll stay." Emily carefully hugged him, mindful of his bandaged shoulder. Carl shook his good hand firmly. Pamela smiled, a real smile, the first William had seen from her since the attack. "Welcome to the family," Carl said. Pamela's high school graduation was held on a perfect June afternoon, blue skies and sunshine warming the outdoor amphitheater. She was valedictorian, of course, full scholarship to MIT, already being recruited by tech companies and research labs. The girl who'd nearly died had not just survived, but thrived. Carl, Emily, and William sat in the front row, watching Pamela give her speech. She wore her cap and gown with pride, her posture straight, her voice strong. "We all face moments that define us," Pamela said to the assembled crowd. "Moments where we have to choose who we want to be. 6 months ago, I faced one of those moments, and I learned that heroes aren't always obvious. Sometimes they're invisible, working quietly in places we don't notice, living lives we don't see, until the moment we need them most." She looked directly at William. "This man taught me that survival isn't about avoiding danger. It's about having the courage to face it. And having people who will face it with you." Emily didn't wait for the speech to finish. She broke protocol, running up on stage, hugging both Pamela and William as he rose from his seat. Carl joined them moments later, and the four of them stood together. A family photo that told the audience everything they needed to know about second chances and found families and redemption. The applause was thunderous. Evening at the Murray home, a new house, secure but warm, filled with life instead of emptiness. William no longer wore a janitor's blue uniform, business casual now, slacks and a button-down shirt. The uniform of Murray Industries' head of security, but he still helped Emily with her homework at the kitchen table, still taught her practical skills like reading maps and identifying poisonous plants, still made time for what mattered. Carl cooked dinner, something he'd learned to do over the past 6 months, reclaiming his role as a present father. Pamela was home from her first week at MIT, full of stories about her professors and new friends. The doorbell rang. William stood automatically, his hand moving toward his hip where his service weapon usually sat. Not now. Off duty at home. Old habits died hard. He checked the security camera. Just a pizza delivery driver. Emily laughed. "Mr. William, we're safe now. You don't have to check every time." William smiled, a real smile, the kind that reached his eyes. "I know, but I'm still checking." "Dinner's ready," Carl called. "William, sit with us. Not join us, not feel free to eat, but sit with us because he was family now. Because somewhere in the past 6 months, the invisible janitor had become the most visible person in their lives. William took his seat at the table. Emily sat beside him, chattering about her school project. Pamela discussed quantum entanglement with Carl, who gamely tried to follow along. Pizza was served on real plates. Laughter filled the spaces where grief used to live. William Wells had been invisible for 4 years, hiding from guilt, from failure, from himself. Convinced that surviving his unit's deaths meant he'd forfeited the right to use his life-saving skills. Convinced that being invisible was safer than being seen, that isolation was easier than connection, that running from the past was the only way to live with it. But sometimes invisible people aren't hiding. Sometimes they're waiting for the moment when being seen mattered, when their skills can make a difference, when their sacrifice and survival can serve a purpose larger than themselves. William didn't fail his unit 5 years ago in that desert ambush. He carried their memory forward with every life he saved, every skill he used, every promise he kept. Rodriguez, Morrison, Chen, all 12 brothers lived on through the work he did, the people he protected, the family he found. And in saving the Murray family, William finally saved himself. He looked around the table at Carl, Pamela, and Emily. At the family who'd seen him when he was invisible, who'd trusted him when he didn't trust himself, who'd given him a reason to stop running and start living. Was this what redemption felt like? William wondered, watching Emily laugh at something Pamela said, seeing Carl's genuine smile, feeling the warmth of belonging after years of cold isolation, not forgetting the past, but honoring it by building something better in the present. "Mr. William?" Emily tugged his sleeve. "Are you okay?" "Yeah, sweetheart," William said, his voice thick with emotion. "I'm more than okay. I'm home." And for the first time in 5 years, he meant it.